welcome to this discussion. It's been highly anticipated, talking about horsemanship. And we have folks from around the world. I'm in Singapore. Yolanda is in Dubai. Ingela Larsson joins us from Switzerland. And Switzerland. And Ben is in sunny UK. This is an awesome team right here. All of these people need no introduction. They're extraordinary with horses. I have been inspired by all of them. Ingela has been an inspiration for me since I was much younger, and I think I've learned all of my horsemanship from her. Yolanda, again, has a fantastic following. She talks about how not only do you build the relationship with the horse emotionally, but also how does it work biomechanically. I think that's going to be a fascinating discussion. And then, of course, Ben needs no introduction, but he needs an introduction because he's like not only an all-round cool dude, but he's achieved some extraordinary things with horses. So this is really, really special. We've got people inquiring from around the world to say, I want to talk to Ben, I want to talk to Ingela and Yolanda. So this is their chance. It's a live conversation. And so from a Cavago standpoint, I'm delighted. And I'll tell you why I'm delighted. Because for me, the dream of Cavago is to unite the horse world and kind of harmonize it. And I can see that in this group. So I cannot tell you just how excited I am to host this panel. And we'll see people continuing to come in and ask questions. So with that, I thought we'll get started. And I really want to have an early conversation with Ben. Ben, I want to know a little bit about how you got started, because if I'm not mistaken, you're largely self-taught, and you've looked at the work of some great people in the past. But tell me about yourself, man.
So it's a bit, where do I start? It's a bit random. So we're three generations of horsemen living on the farm at home. So there's myself, there's my father, I think he's 62, I think. It's 60 something. It might be 61, it could be 60. And then my grandfather's 93. And we've always all worked horses together. Now, all the horse work started with my grandfather. When he left school at 12 years old, he was working the land with horses. So he was ploughing with horses, farming with horses. And a lot of the skills that I learned are from him. So when I was growing up, my father was busy a lot. Obviously, we actually were dairy farmers originally. And my mother got him to move out of normal farming and move into horses. And so while he was setting up the business, he made money by being a horse dealer. He would buy loads of 10 horses from Ireland. And then he would bring them on to do show jumping and showing and various different things. And so I spent a lot of time with my grandfather, who taught me how to break young horses in, how to carriage drive, how to ride, those sorts of things. And then my dad ended up doing horses for battle reenactments and film and TV when I was very small, when I was maybe 4 or 5. And so I've always said that I kind of grew up in Neverland.
You're on a set?
Awesome.
You're on a set?
Yeah, on set, on film sets, at live shows. So if you couldn't get your horse to lay down, that's because there was something wrong with you. It wasn't so I didn't live in a world where I never saw any of these things, and then suddenly you see Lorenzo or Jean-Francois, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is possible.
I want to be like them when I grow up.
Yeah, I grew up, and it was I can't lay down my pony. I need to pull my finger out and get better. And you just had such a brilliant childhood playing with horses, from everything from cross country, show jumping, showing, carriage driving. I mean, if you can think of it, we did it. I played polo. We did everything just to get as round as many horses as possible. And I was so always enchanted by liberty. And I was 11 when I first saw Lorenzo perform, and I had 2 white show jumping ponies at the time. So I came home and immediately decided I would stand on them and do that. And I did my first performance standing on the backs of these 2 ponies at a gallop when I was 11. And things have never really stopped from there. At 14, I got sponsored by English Heritage, who are a big historical trust over here. I got given £2,000 in scholarship from them to learn to trick ride from Guido Louis, who is an incredible stunt rider.
Roman riding on 2 horses at the same time, right?
Yeah. So that's
man.
how it started, and then they got in touch with Guido, and he taught me to trick ride. I apprenticed with him for 2 years, doing trick riding and doing stunts. But then, like throughout all of that time, I was trying to do Liberty, and then I started getting the hang of it through trial and error. If you can think of a way of training horses, I've probably done it. I've done treat training. I've done making your own treats because I thought that the treats I was using weren't good enough, and that's why it wasn't working. I've done clicker training, target training, I tried everything. If it was out there, I tried. And then basically, it came to a head when I was 18. I did my first performance solo at Liberty at the Horse of the Year show, and I would say,
did you feel nervous at that time? I mean, that's a big show. I've seen it.
Yeah.
At 18, you're looking at a crowd. What was going through your head?
Well, 2 things. The first was just the biggest imposter syndrome in the world. I was like, I don't belong here. What am I doing? And I was just like, it was like living that nightmare where you're in a dream and then you're on stage public speaking, but you don't know what to say, and then you're naked. Like that was like how I felt. And then my other one was that I was really worried that would be the peak of my life. I was really worried that I'd got
downhill.
I'd managed to fool the world. I'd managed to blag my way to be at Hoy's with my Spanish horse, with my first Spanish horse, Sebastian, Monzo, this stallion. He's incredible. He was 14. I had him on loan. And the other thing that was going through me, I thought that I'd never get another opportunity to do something like that. I didn't know how I would ever get better. And then over the years, it sounds like it's not true, but it's trial and error. I've been to 2 clinics with Frederick, and both of them have been life-changing for me. I've learned as much from sitting with Frederick, having lunch and speaking about horsemanship, and from watching other people's lessons that I have from my own. So if you ever see a Frederick clinic, if you're someone watching us now, and you see one of Frederick's clinics going on, and you think, I've not got a horse or I can't get space, go and watch. I think you learn more from other people's lessons than your own, because in your own, you're so self-conscious and so just feeling like, I can't do it. I don't know what you force too much force on yourself. But you learn so much from watching. And then the other thing from that is I did lots and lots of watching other people perform online. So I would watch Lorenzo's performances religiously, and I'd watch it till I got bored of the video. And then when I was bored of the video, I would watch the whips and see what cues were being given where. And then I'd watch his mouth to see if he was speaking. Was he using vocal cues? Where's he looking? What's going on with each and every horse? And the final thing from my learning would be I've connected with brilliant people through Instagram around the world. I messaged people who I'd never met before from France or from Germany, from Spain, and say, do you want to come over to mine, hang out and train horses for a couple of weeks, and we'll swap skills? And you met
envious life.
Mine's not the most conventional way. So if anyone out there's going to ask me how you get to do what I do, I don't know.
well, with that, I just want to say a couple of things, right? For the audience, as they're pouring in right now, when he says Frederick, what he actually means is the great Frederick Pignon. That's mind-blowing in itself. Ben, I will do a deep dive on your session with Frederick. Frederick Pignon, I must add, because I don't know him personally. But before we dive into that, I wanted to get a background on both Ingela and Yolanda, so that we can actually kickstart this dialogue between all 3 of us. And one of those conversations will be about Frederick. So maybe what I can do is next protocol. Ingela, tell us about your background, because you have such an interesting background. I know you since a very long time. I look at you as a mentor figure. You've been an inspiration in my life, especially with horses. And so for me, it's such a privilege to have this conversation, especially with such incredible people. But tell me about how you got started and about your achievements. And then we'll move on to Yolanda, and then I've got a few questions for each of you.
Okay. So, well, what happened in my life was I started competing traditionally, I practiced up to Grand Prix level in dressage. I competed at advanced intermediate in eventing. In England, Ben, I moved from Switzerland to England because I was born as a complete horse freak. Even though I grew up in a skyscraper in a little suburb of the capital, Bern, all I wanted to do is horses. And especially I was inspired by the First Nations riding bareback and bridleless. But there was no options for that and no horse people in my family. So I got started late. I started riding when I was maybe 14 or 15, which resulted in continuously falling off and getting scared. So I decided that's not working. I'm buying my own horse. I did that with 16. That didn't go very good either. But eventually I made progress and got to compete at kind of higher level. And I moved to England to do that, to do horses full time. Then I got into natural horsemanship. I first studied with Pat Pirelli. This is many years ago, 1999, 2000 maybe.
Did you go to the US, Ingela?
Yes, I was. He at that time he picked he gave 6 people in the world a scholarship. Basically picked 6 of the most talented people. Wow. And I had written to him and he ignored me. And so eventually what I did, I wanted to be one of his instructors. And at that time, I already actually became the fastest in the world to get to level 3 from scratch. That's what he had in his program at that time. So I loaded my horse up from England and I drove it all the way to France where he was teaching. And I watched what he was teaching his instructors in the arena. And I decided I'm just going to do everything that they do, but outside the arena, bareback and bridleless. So they were working on simple lead changes. So I did that. Then they were working on flying lead changes. So I thought I'd just do 2 tempi on the straight line with my thoroughbred mare and things like that. So it didn't take very long and I was invited into the arena. And from there, I pretty soon got to be an apprentice, which was fun because we got to tour the US and do big demonstrations, for 5,000 to 8,000 people at a time. So was super.
And you felt like Ben at Hoy's as well, like when you in front of all these people?
Probably there at the same time. Well, I'm a lot older than Ben, so maybe Ben, maybe you were still, maybe you were still really young then. I probably could easily be your mom by now. So, okay.
So she's saying you were in diapers at the time, just saying.
Yeah, I was just looking for a better sentence than that, Taz, okay? So anyway, from there, I actually stopped being on what I would call like the professional circuit, because I got a really strong calling from God to go help the orphans and street children. So I basically went to Africa, India, and now in Brazil. I've been there for the last 12 years, helping orphans and street children. And they are pretty much the only people I teach horsemanship now. I do teach in the Western world a couple of times a year, but I'm so maxed on time over there that that's where my focus has been. So what happened? I started to discover a lot of keys regarding forming a heart connection with the horse because, when I started in the Pirelli system, it was very dominant. And in a horse herd, you have all types of horses. You have the dominant horse, you have the lead horse, and you have the passive horse. Now, you get to choose as what you would like to communicate. You just have to know that that's how the horse is going to see you. And it's okay for the horses. So like, let's say you decide, okay, I'm taking the passive role. Then if your horse is more dominant than you, he's going to call all the shots, right? If you decide I'm going to take the dominant role, that works well for the passive horses. It doesn't work so well for stallions that are extremely dominant because naturally they only follow the lead. They fight without the dominant horses. They have a hierarchy with them. So if you're very, very dominant, yes, you can make it and any stallion or most of them will still be obedient and help you work. But I basically was searching for some keys and I call it true connection. And basically I'm focusing on the lead horse, for the human to become as much as possible like the lead horse, because every horse in the herd follows the lead horse. Even a suggestion, that means on thought and energy alone, they will follow the lead horse. And the dominant horse is more the one that is pushing and is more responsible for herd structure. So that's what I've been focusing on the last, 15 years. So my students in the West, I teach them that. And of course, the children in Brazil, that's what we do. And yes, I am also, like Ben, I'm a total fan of Frédéric Pinois. I think he's amazing. He's an artist. He has a great feel for the horse, a great understanding. And just like Ben, I can sit there for literally hours and hours and watch Frédéric, and I learn something every minute. It never ends.
That's so awesome. And I'm so proud to be like an English student for so many years. Like, yeah. And you know, I've not seen Frédéric to that level of detail, but that's certainly something I'm going to do. But someone else who I've observed a lot more through Instagram, even though we lived in the same city, Dubai, is Yolanda. And she's inspirational because she really talks a lot about breathing and energy. And I know that with horsemanship, that means a lot. It means a lot. So with that, I want to introduce Yolanda. Please tell us about your background, because you have a very different background to all of us put together.
I know. And this is a really tough act to follow, like 1 and 2. And I must point out, Ingela, if you think you could be Ben's mum, then that puts me in the grandmother range.
Hey, it's great. We can have these 3 generations.
Hey, we have a whole family here. Right, so my background is completely different. I'll tell you honestly, the first time I climbed on a horse, I was mid-city. And I'd come from my initial training was as an engineer. So my mind, a very analytical thinking mind. And I looked at this horse thing and I thought, this is quite easy. It's a little bit of push, a little bit of pull, a little bit of guidance, and off you go, you know. And what I realized over time was, although I could quite easily understand the how to, there was a massive gap between my perception of what I was doing and what the horse was receiving as an instruction. So I started to think, hold on, I really need to understand this thing. I need to understand, how do I connect in the language of the horse, not the language of the engineer? And that led me down this path of, well, firstly, I started with the Franklin method, you know, and the Franklin method, something developed for dancers. So if you think that a dancer works with rhythm, they work with harmony, they work with breath all the time, what that really started me articulating when I'm working with riders is, hold on, how fluid are you? You know, what can we do in your body that makes you quieter so the horse can really understand what it is that you expect of them? So, you know, my journey a little bit, certainly not as rich as the journeys that you have, but I learn every single day. You know, I learn when I look at a rider, I learn when that horse comes in the arena, I can normally tell how I need to approach that session. And I always come back to, let's first make the connection. Let me look at the rider, let me remove tension, let me see if I can walk next to the horse and start to slow my breathing, drop my energy down. And once I have that, I have a horse and rider combination that I can help in the saddle. So different approach, but yeah.
So that is really interesting. And I want to pick out a strand here. And I'm going back to the many years before when I'd worked with Ingela, and she'd always talk to me about breathing, right? And I was one of those people who'd be really tight in their shoulders, and I'd have to see, look at Ingela cringe already, you know? and I'd often go back and think about it, and I'd think about it more when I'd be by myself, right? And I want to be able to have the audience pick up on your thoughts on breathing and how you guys use your breathing. How does that relate to the horse? And can you give me specific examples of how, you know, how closely you work with the horse, specifically looking at breathing and your energy? Because these are intangibles that are so important to horse people. So, you know, let's talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this, you know, Yolanda, on the breathing thing and all of that, and the breathing and the tension, I find it fascinating you talking about this, because this is something that I've been doing for a while, but I didn't know how, if that makes sense. I knew it was part of it, but I didn't know how. And then so I'm kind of on this journey at the moment. So like for me with the breath work, it goes back to, I was having dressage lessons with an ex-bullfighter in Spain. And I said to him, after we were coming home after the lessons, and I said to him, what, if you could give one piece of advice to anyone riding a horse, what would it be? And he said, breathe. He said, everyone forgets to breathe.
Oh, yeah.
You need to breathe. And so then now, when I'm teaching people, it's not even coming close to the like comprehension and depth that you get. But I almost say to people, imagine you're on a first date. Like that's how it, like you don't want to be sat opposite the other end of the table at the dinner table, like really tense, and it's like, no, that's not what you want. That relax. It's like almost like when you meditate, it's like close your eyes. Where's the tension in your body? It's in here. Lose it, relax it, shake yourself off, and then you'll find people get better liberty from a horse. Or like riding even more. Riding's harder because people get defensive because they're worried about themselves getting hurt. But when you're working with a horse loose, like we all do it in our own homes or in our lives, like you're walking up to someone, if you don't want to have a conversation with them, or you just want to get to your place in the office and get past, we can put up those barriers just through the tension in our body. And I think it's really interesting, like you're saying, talking about this idea of the release of tension and the use of breath to harmonize with that, because it's almost like we're finally coming to a place where we can put down in words or in writing that what we would call the magic, that feel and timing.
You know, absolutely. And there is a real anatomical reason to do it as well. So if you think, so I'll go a little bit into the anatomy, right? But if you think that as you inhale, your diaphragm comes down, right? So the muscle shortens. As the diaphragm comes down, it needs space because it's pulling your lungs down, right? It's pulling the air in. So the diaphragm comes down, it needs space. It pushes the organs ever so slightly forward, and then it stretches your pelvic floor. So they've proven this on an MRI. And what do we want as a rider? We want a deep connection through our seat. So as you breathe in, if you brace your stomach, number one, your diaphragm can't do its job, and you don't get that knock-on effect of the stretch on the pelvic floor, which helps open your hip joint. So people think about breath and they think, oh my God, that's really out there with the fairies. I just want to learn to ride. What are you talking about, breath? What's wrong with you, one? And I normally take a great deal of time to explain to them, hold on. There are many, many, many reasons why we need to focus on your breath. But let me give you just this one reason. And I kind of think, especially for competitive riders, if they take that away and they think, okay, if I breathe, my performance is going to increase, well, then I know I've got them in a good place. So, I think it's really interesting. I mean, years ago, I would have started a rider. If you asked me, how do I start a rider? I would have said, the first thing I do is I pull out the pelvis. And I said,
that's a real pelvis.
Right?
Can I just say as well, just quickly chip in, is anybody else now unable to breathe normally? Now we're talking about this. Everyone, I'm sitting here, I'm like,
I choked a little bit when I saw the pelvis, but apart from that.
But here's the thing, I would have done this thing, and I would have said to the rider, now, what is your seat bone doing? Well, firstly, show me where your seat bone is. The vast majority of riders would have pointed here to the iliac crest, and then I realized, oh my God, hold on, most people actually don't know what their anatomy is. So this is not a sensible way to start. Let me start with something that the rider can really feel. They can feel their breast deepening, they can feel their seat lightening, they feel their hip joint. The horse, 9 times out of 10, will give a huge sigh. They'll start yawning, they'll blow out. Then the movement will start to pick up, freedom comes through the shoulders, and from there, I can start to stack the riders more biomechanically. So I always start with that.
That's really, really great. I like what you shared there, Yolanda, and I actually would be quite interested if there's any studies regarding liberty, because what I find is, one of the challenging things is to get a person, when you work at liberty with a horse, that person first must find peace and relaxation in themselves, especially if they're going to be the lead of the horse. If they're in a passive position or dominance, they can maybe get it done. But if you want to be the lead and have your horse literally follow your thought, energy, max a body cue, so you have eventually true lightness and harmony, it requires for you to be absolutely present to the horse. You have to be totally in the moment, because horses just don't even care about training. You know, they care about, are you really present with them? And they just want to hang out with you and be with you. They don't want you to be thinking about chicken dinner or your piaffe in that corner, you know. They're just like, no. So they just like to be with you. And as humans, we have such a struggle to be here, because even if we really focus people, then what are we focusing on? We're focusing on what I'm going to do with this horse. I am going to do this, right? So we're always kind of thinking ahead. And I found that it's super important we first just be with the horse, but in a place where we offer ourselves to the horse as the true lead. And that does not happen unless you carry a level of peace. So if you're breathing up here, and Yolanda, you will know a lot more about that, or you breathe shallow or fast, it's just a reflection of what's actually going on in your heart. You know, if you can find peace and really enjoy the time with your horse, and you breathe deep into your body, then you're actually able to be more present to the horse, connect better to the horse. And from there, you're able to communicate much clearer. I think it also influences the way we are thinking, right? So we all know this, when we are stressed, and Ben would have 100%. The most experience of that, because he does a lot of performance and really high level performance with, you know, exercises that are extremely difficult with multiple horses at liberty and all this super great stuff. So in that time, if we get nervous, what happens? We can disconnect from our horses. And when we disconnect, everything goes south, and it is terrible. And of course, then you get more nervous and you breathe more shallow. So it's great to have something like, Ben, wouldn't it? I mean, I have this when I'm watching my boys for a performance. I'm the one.
Oh, I'm just like, and then it goes wrong, and then one runs off, and then the crowd laughs. And then you just want to die, and it's just the worst. Like, I find it's interesting you say, because I find it's easier now. I'm working such big teams. It's easier to get into. Well, the way I say is that I have to go into flow state.
Yeah.
I have to be completely in flow state. I have to be completely concentrated on everything and absolutely nothing at the same time. And when you're working a bigger team, there's no room for the crowd. It's almost like all pieces of the brain occupied. I actually think I was more nervous. I'm more nervous, say, if I'm performing on with a single Liberty horse than I am with a team, because it helps you. And that's a massive thing I say to people as well. Like, it's one thing if I'm helping people become performers, exactly like what you were saying. It's one thing to do it at home on your own, but it's a completely different thing to do it in front of other people. Like, there's suddenly that tension just in your own body. And so, like, if I'm about to perform, I have an hour cutoff before I perform. And my team, this makes me sound like such a diva. This is really bad. But I think it makes me sound like a diva. But I don't mind anyone asking me anything, no matter how stupid the question. We can have had the same coloured cloths on the horses all season. Which colour cloths are we going to have on? The blue ones. Up until 1 hour before showtime. 1 hour before showtime, everyone, like, just because I need to have my head clear, I take myself off. I try and remove myself from other distractions, from other things, get routines to get the body in that calm state. Like, for me, it's really weird. It's the polishing and then shining and putting on of my boots before the show.
It's the ritual, the mindfulness of the ritual.
Yeah. And it's, my mum is hilarious, because she says, mum comes to every performance that I do. Mum does the music, she does the costume, and she's the only person who I can come out from performing at somewhere like Hoy's and I'll go, that was perfect. And everyone's like, yeah, that was great. And mum's like, that was wrong. And you're like, ow, but thank you. And she says, when I put my costume on as well, I walk differently. She says she can hear it. She says, I don't even need to look at you. I can hear your footsteps and know if you're in your blue. We call it my blue power jacket.
I've seen the power jacket.
That's awesome.
but all of that, like, it helped me. I know I feel like I've gone off on a tangent, but what I've tried to share with you guys and with everyone watching, listening, is they're the things that I've come up with to help me keep that calm. And then it's weird how it's transferred into other areas of life, because now if I find myself in stressful situations, I'm so much better at remaining more level.
I think that's
so
sure powerful. And I think I'm gonna come in. We were talking about Frederick, if I may, earlier on. I feel so special now, if I may. So, and Ben, you told me about what he does, right? The shoe thing, like no more shoes. You've got to tell us about that.
Yeah, taking his shoes off to be grounded. And like, were you there when Ingela? Were you there when we had Sebastian? And Sebastian was going insane. And then Fred walked up to him. He put one hand on his withers, one hand on Sebastian's chest, and then, like, I don't know, did seemingly nothing. And then Fred just goes, and Sebastian was just, it was like Darren Brown.
You know, then it's that transference of peace. So if we can be completely grounded, completely authentic, and at peace inside, and we offer that to the horse, he joins us in that place. So, of course, if you're flapping around like a headless chicken and the horse is already going crazy by itself, this is not a good combination. So, of course, the thing is, you know, Frederick has a lot of practice on finding that place, staying in that place, no matter what. And the rest of us, we're still learning that, right? So, but it's so amazing to see that and experience that, you know, that it's not the outward things. It is not the movements we make. It's not where we ask the horse to turn or block or do. It is literally who we are, and that we're offering that to the horse. And he sees us as the lead, and he sees us as the person that gives love, peace, and joy. So you can't give anything away you don't have. We know that from money, right? If you don't have money, doesn't matter how much you would like to give it away, you don't have it to give. And it's actually the same as peace, it's the same as love, it's the same as trust, it's the same as joy. So that's why we actually need to have that ourselves first, so we can offer that to the horse. And they're so wonderful. They always take it. Like, we know that, and I'm sure, Ben, you know this, that you know, no matter what a horse is like, no matter what is happening, if we can get in the right place and actually be peaceful and loving and enjoy our time with him, they always say yes. They always join. There's always a change, you know. And the more we the other way, the less gets accomplished. It's just useless. And in a way, we go backward, you know, especially in liberty work. You can ruin something that is going to take you then a few days to reestablish again, you know.
Yeah, massively.
Honestly, you know, yeah, this is so powerful. I share with you just a quick story as well. I had a rider that came back into the saddle after some fairly major surgery. So she was afraid. I mean, she came in with a lot of tension, and she was just afraid, and she wanted to make that first step back again. But what she carried with her body translated directly to the horse. You know, everything was blocked and tense and snorting and looking, and we created a small program for her that every time she climbs on the horse, she visualizes herself on a bridle path. So, you know, we live in the UAE. There's definitely no green, lush bridle paths, and there's no pine trees. But she created this bubble. So she climbs on. She starts to smell the leaves. She tells me the color of the leaves around her. She says she can hear her horse's calm, steady breathing, the rhythmic footfall. And that's how we do the entire dressage session. We do it in her bubble. So she comes to me, she puts her bubble on, the horse climbs in the bubble, and we did it with breath as well. So that as she created this bubble, she started breathing, and I said, right now, when you inhale, I want you to extend your diaphragm all the way down through your horse. Visualize that. Pick your diaphragm up, pick your horse up, pick the energy, and exhale. And the two of them started breathing in sync. Right, and obviously the horse breathes a little bit slower than the human, but you know, everything just calmed down as they put themselves into this bubble, slower breathing, strong visualization of things that meant something to her, you know, including smells, sights, sounds. And as I say, this is This is how we conducted our dressage training. So we're flying changes, we're doing everything that you would do in a standard dressage test, but in the screen bubble.
That's so powerful. And, you know, it's interesting because some of these questions are coming in. And I think, Yolanda, you've addressed one of those questions. Elena Riolo, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, did ask, if you're stressed, what do you do when you ride or train your horses? What you could do to calm down before work? And I think you've kind of addressed that question. And I wanted to see what Ben or Ingela had to say about that particular question.
I can answer that, and then Ben, you can go after me if you like. I'm sure I have a different approach. I'm sure I have a different approach from most of you because I'm a believer, I'm a Christian, so I can tell you how I do it. Okay, so we have Sophie asking this and some other people. So how I do it personally, I first become aware that I am loved by God, you know. So no matter what is this big stress going on and all the expectations and all this performance and maybe everything that's already gone wrong, if I have to take a little break, like even 30 seconds, and I just try to focus on becoming aware how loved I am, and that it is not, my value does not depend about my performance. Even if I'm a complete failure and I do everything wrong, I am still loved because I'm unique and special, and so are all of you watching. So I become very aware of that God loves me exactly as I am, and I am loved. And when I feel it, when I feel that, I just let that flow to the horse. I call it the love bubble. So that was interesting what you said, like, Yolanda. So we call it the love bubble. And the love bubble is not something that you push out to your horse. You know, you don't go, I'm now just going to push all this love that I feel from my horse towards him. That in itself creates more tension. It is just that you include the horse in this place. So I find that I focus on how loved I am, and then once I'm aware of that, I let that flow to the horse. And regarding the peace, somebody else asked that too, you know, it's the same. The reason why we lose our peace very often is either because of value damage, that we are afraid we're not going to perform, we're not going to measure up, we're not going to be able to have what it takes, somehow something is going to go wrong. It's those kind of things that steal our peace, right? So just like Ben, I shut everything out because it doesn't even matter that there's people watching, that it's important. I focus on me and the horse like there is nobody else there. It's just me and the horse. And then I am just so thrilled. You know, horses are so wonderful, guys. I mean, everybody knows this, but just spending time with them, it is fantastic. So I just go enjoying my horse. That's what I do. I just become present to my horse. I forget the rest of the planet. And I'm there with my horse, and I'm absolutely thrilled. I get to do something with this horse. And if we are just interacting and we're not even moving, totally fine. And maybe pretty soon we do have a piaffe, but I don't care about it. You know, I go for this connection and feeling that the horse actually is attentive, is interested, loves to be with me, and we have this wonderful relationship. That's how I find the peace easier. The more we focus on what are people thinking, what am I not doing right, what if I don't measure up, what if, you know, it's all got to do with the instability of the relationship that we believe we have. So I don't focus on pushing it away. I simply look away from it. The same way, you know, let's say there's all the people, I choose to just simply look away from them and look at my horse. And if I've lost my peace with my horse, which I have very rarely lost my peace in the last, say, 15 years, but before that I did. And now I only lose my peace if a horse that I don't know is extremely aggressive. And this has happened to me in Brazil just recently, where I'm absolutely puzzled. I cannot understand, you know, what happened, but it turns into an absolute predator. That's not fun. So then I lose my peace because I'm with that specific horse. So then I'm actually focusing away from the horse onto God, and I get my peace back. And then I'm trying again. I enter the arena and I'm absolutely 100% present. I'm not just air. I enter the round pen and I'm super present. And I actually say to the horse, by the way, you know that all of this space is mine. but I'm so nice. I share it with you, but actually it belongs all to me. And then we try again.
That's powerful. I'm curious to hear, Ben, because I have something to add as well. But I'm in such a esteemed company that I'm just gonna keep quiet until the end.
So just
too humble.
Just hit me with the question again. How do we stay calm when we're working? How do we find that calmness when we're working with horses?
So you have the jacket. We know you got the jacket. But what else do you do?
So it depends. There's two ways I'd go about this. One is what I would say is probably 90% of horse people. I'll talk about me performing as well, because I think that's more relatable for when people are competing. But if you're just training, you're here for the journey, not for the destination.
Oh, wow.
Like that's the biggest thing for me. So like, if you just want your horse to Spanish walk, just give me the money, send it to my yard, pick it up in a week, take it, done, enjoy. But people get upset when they're teaching the horse something because they get so focused on the end, on the where I need to be. I need the goal. I need him to lay down now. I need this. I want liberty circles. I want trot. I want can't la la la. Like it's all based on this destination. And then when we get there, we'll forget it. Like right now, the skill we're aiming for looks towering above us. It's some glorious golden place we're gonna be king of the mountain when we get there. But I promise you, when you get there, that's a piece of nothing, and the next shiny thing is in the distance. And it's remembering within your training process. Like so, sometimes well, today before I came on here, I was teaching my team some new things, and it was awful. It was really it just wasn't working. I'm trying to teach them some new formation things, and like they were confused. I was confused, and you just have to take a step back and you remind yourself, you're like, you enjoy this bit. Like take like the performance at Hoy's. It's 20 minutes. 20 minutes once a day for a week. Is that why you're doing it? Like, no. You're doing it for the hours in the round pen. You're doing it for like it's one of my favorite things. Every horse is a riddle. There's always another secret, and that's what we're here for. We're here to crack the riddle, to get the secrets, to get to that little gem inside. But it's the journey that we have to enjoy. If you can keep in that process, like if you're in a schooling session and you've got a horse who we are trying to get lighter in the hand, and then suddenly he locks his jaw, crosses the jaw, they're gone. It's awful. That one bad moment didn't make it a bad session. It's for me, it's a lot of that in like trying to keep yourself calm. You're enjoying the process, and if something goes wrong, then don't ask for it in the same way again. Change. Like that's why you're a human and they're the horse. That's why this works the way it works. For competition, I think like I've already mentioned already, we've got the jacket, we've got the boot polishing. I think I like routines, and I'm a massive advocate of being honest with yourself. And if you've got earned confidence or perceived confidence.
That's so interesting.
Do you think you're going to do well when you go in the ring because your mum and dad have got an Oakley Supreme horse box and you've got the latest jacket and hat and you've got posh pony? Cool, but if you've not been training and you don't understand your horse, you're screwed. Whereas if you've put the work in, and then this is the difference. When I was 18 and I was at Hoy's, I don't know how, like looking back on it, honestly, with everyone, the fact that Liberty performance went as well as it did, and the fact that horse didn't run off during any of those performances is like, it's a miracle. The only thing that I can put it down to is that horse was so scared of the dry ice, and because the arena was dark and there was a spotlight, he stayed in the spotlight, and that's where I was. Like, honestly, I'm telling you guys, that's what it was. Because I was not doing great. And I was sick with nerves. I was sick. I was in the hotel room. I was crying. I was genuinely being sick because I was so stressed. I was foul. I hated it. But now when I perform, I put the work in. I've done the hours. I've done the training. I understand my horses. I've gone to teachers. I've learned from other people. I've opened myself to this journey. And so I can have that release before I go in. If it doesn't go well, you did your best. like you did the best you could do, and so did the animals, and that's it. It's about giving that. It's not about striving for perfection. Otherwise, I wouldn't work with.
So I'm compelled to share. Sorry, Yolanda, you want to?
No. I just I wanted to say, I think Ben has touched on something so powerful, and it comes back to a discussion that we had as well. Because what I find, especially if you take the equestrian world and you put it into one of the disciplines like dressage or show jumping, and you know, there's a question to be asked: is that does your journey start at the podium, or does it end at the podium?
Wow.
So, in other words, if you start your life with horses and your goal is that podium win, that governs every single decision you make. Every single play that you put in with that horse is governed by this overwhelming desire that I need to get to the podium. However, if you start your journey and you start your journey loving the journey and embracing the journey for everything that journey is, you'll end up at the podium.
Yeah.
But you'll get there in a way that is meaningful and is in the welfare, with the welfare and, you know, the ethical training and the integrity and just being a decent damn human being in the process of getting to the podium. So, you know, I think the journey, it is the journey. It's all about loving
Yolanda,
the journey.
that is absolutely right. Because, you know, especially when you are training a horse, it's just like Ben said that too. If we skip a step, we need to go back and find out, well, why did it not work, you know? So there is all these small intricate things that are easy to miss. You know, maybe a horse is worried, say 30 centimeters on the side of his ear at 2 meter height, but nowhere else, you know? And because of that, every time you're trying to turn everybody to the left, he turns right, or something small like that. But you have to find out, you have to really kind of be analytical and find out, okay, what is not working and why, when something isn't working. Because when we're building it step by step and everything is right and the horse has understood every single piece of the training, it's easy for him. He just hangs them together. This means this, this means this, this means this, and we build on it, right? But sometimes it doesn't work like that. And then either people and horses can get frustrated together and it turns into a big mess, or we can enjoy the journey and say, oh, we have a little gap here, there's a little hole, let's work on this, and find out the small little part that we need to review, you know? And I mean, I find such joy in the journey of all these little pieces to build in the relationship with the horse, you know, and the whole time actually focus on this heart connection and the relationship with the horse. And then it's beautiful how you can build things together and that they're capable of learning such intricate communication. We work a lot with just shaping space. I don't know if you're familiar with that too, Ben, but basically where you take a horse, it can be a young horse that has never done anything, or it can be a very advanced horse, but you take it into a space. Bigger is better, like say 40 by 80 meter arena, and you go in there as the lead, claiming all the space or honoring all the space as yours. And then you mentally open a space that you share with your horse, just like they do in the herd, right? They say, okay, you're welcome here. This space over here is currently not available, but this space is. So it's absolutely amazing that they can feel this just from thought and energy, and maybe our micro muscles, but they totally are able to feel which space is open, which space they're welcome to turn into, go into, at which speed, and which not. That's just like a really fun thing. We've actually done that. Yeah.
No, that makes perfect sense, because that's like, I mean, that's one of these things. See, I'm so uneducated. I don't know all the terms for all these things, but like in my working my teams at Liberty, like you're saying, mentally doing that, mentally closing spaces off and opening others up. To me, that's because people ask me, how can you take the team and then say, okay, I'm going to park 4 over here and I'm going to take these 4 over there, and you 4 don't move. And we'll be in like a 20-acre grass field. And you're like, don't move. And people say to me, how do you do it? And I'm like, a lot of things now, like 90% of what I do, I can say, oh, this is the process, this is how we teach it, la la la. But with things like that, yeah, it's like
so Ben,
I tell them.
So
yeah, I just have to have the awareness.
So see Ben, like, because you're naturally extremely talented and you've practiced for so many years since you're a little boy, right? These things, they're just there. You have built the language, you're communicating with the horse. You don't maybe even know in some ways how. Now 90% you know, but there's these other things. So I give you an example of sharing space, because when I watch you, you are for sure doing this. There is no way you could do it otherwise, from my point of view, right? Because you basically, the horses are standing still. You say, wait, and what space is available to them? Only the space under their feet. The rest of the field is closed. If they look at you as the lead, they don't have the right to enter that space, just like it is in a herd. And then you are moving the other horses, which you open space for them. Here, shared space that they're sharing with you. So we did something that was really funny. In one of my classes in England, we had a lady that has never done this. She has never done liberty. She has competed, and I gave her my older Lipizzan, who's very sensitive to thought and energy and space, of course. And I said to her, go into the arena, and the first thing you need to do is make sure all the space belongs to you. Be big in the arena. Be present. Don't be like Leafy on the side, And I said, what you would like to see from the horse is that he starts moving and looking to you and say, where is my space? Because horses are extremely interested in space. They want the space to eat, sunbathe, drink, where everybody is in the herd, where they get to stand. Space is precious and important to them. So I forgot to say to her that the moment she basically claims all the space, she needs to open a space for the horse where he can be, right? Not nowhere, okay? So luckily that horse is not a good jumper. So, but there was a little wooden block. Those things we stand horses on with all 4 feet, right? But the lady is not a natural horsemanship lady. She's never seen a thing like that. She doesn't know what that is. But the horse does, right? So what he is feeling from her is that she has claimed everything, the entire arena, minus that little block, because she just kind of ignored it. The horse ran to that block and stood up there with all 4 feet. And she's like, why is he doing that? Well, which space did you make available for him? She goes, well, none yet. I said, well, that's why he picked somewhere that was available.
He picked the spot.
Yeah.
No,
Wow.
I find it fascinating, because it's one of those things where, I wish I knew how to explain it more, and you seem to know. I need to learn
I'm coming
this.
next time.
So it's like when you're working with
travel, I come over.
Come. Yes,
Fantastic.
Please. I would love
just
that.
Just let Cavago know.
Everyone can. We'll, but it's exactly what you say, because I can have the team following me, and there's a part in the show where I have the 7 following, and then without a cue at all, I park them and I walk off, and then I walk to the other end and I call them, and you make it so that there's not, I do energy for the call because I want to get all 7 coming, but when you park them, it's almost in my mind. I feel like I have doors seems too linear, but like lights in my brain. And then you're like, okay, shut that one off. Turn the dimmer switch down on that one, and they stay there. And then if you turn it up again, and then it works the same for if you're. Sorry, I'm just blown away by this. I'm having a great time.
I don't want to put a damper.
But if you see if your team are there and then one of the horses is about to attack one of the others, you can look at them and be like, and the one who's naughty knows, and the others are
asleep. So because they know it's not exactly the same. Just think about when you're having you teach each horse, I assume, separate, say a liberty circle, and then you add 2, then 3, and so on, right? So eventually it gets easier if you have the first and the last horse in the line listen well, the others are lining up. But let's just say you're starting and this is not happening yet. Maybe the first horse that you have the circle is getting bigger and bigger, you know, further away from you, and is pushing the other horse out, right? Which one you're communicating with? The one that is pushing the other one out. You're asking this one to come closer. Or let's say one is going too slow. You might use your stick and touch him, and the others are not wildly galloping off. They know you're not talking to them. You're just talking to that one. So, you know, horses are so much better at that than we are. And the better we can get at this, the more easily we can exactly communicate eventually just with thought and energy, max a body cue, where we don't even need to touch, you know, because they're so perceptive of space. It's absolutely fascinating. Can
I jump in here?
Yes.
We're talking about light, we're talking about energy, and I really don't want to put any damper on the light. The sad thing is, we've almost run out of time, and we could talk all night.
Oh, wow.
I don't know about you guys, but I have like little goosebumps just listening to you guys speak. And like, I've known Ingela for years. And like, I know how she talks, and when I teach a little bit, I talk just like her. I roll my arms as well. You know, like that light definitely goes on. But unfortunately, we've run out of time. We've got other sessions. We've got like Iguada Cartuja, you know, the sort of hallmark of Andalusian breeding coming up after this. What I want to do is, I mean, this audience is just like, I know they're clued on right now, is what are your key messages from this conversation for them? Maybe what we can do is start with Yolanda, then Ingela, and close it off with Ben before this call runs out. We've got about 5 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Right. So if I had to impart one piece of wisdom, I guess is I would urge anybody that works with horses to become really aware of where their own body is in space and time. So if you're going to interact with a horse in any way, you really need to understand more about where you're at, how your body moves, what your emotions are, where your breath level is, what's your central nervous system doing? Is your nervous system firing away? Or are you calm? Are you centered? You know, if you take that into any interaction, whether it's in the saddle, at liberty, whatever, at least you're starting with a blank sheet. You know, you're starting with a book that says, I'm open, talk to me.
Wow, that's so powerful. Ingela, your message.
My message to the audience. Okay, guys, this is what I would like to leave with you, okay? Really learn to enjoy your horses rather than trying to be the best or accomplish everything that Ben can already do. I know it's very inspiring and tempting, but, you know, just enjoy your horse, or if you don't even have one, the time that you get with horses, you know, enjoy that time. And when you meet the horse, be 100% present to the horse. And when you're 100% present, be your authentic self. Don't try to be someone that you're not, because horses don't talk to masks. Okay? But if you're your authentic self, they will interact with you. They're really great like that. So, and for everybody out there that is already super awesome with horses, I just encourage you to go on a journey to see if you can refine your phases. So if you're using like a big body cue or the stick or your voice, which are all cues, you know, try to start off with just a thought. Like when I want to go from a hold to a canter, I open the space in front of me and my horse, and my thought is making that space available. It's an upward and forward. Opening of the space is my first phase to communicate to the horse. If he doesn't respond, I don't wait half an hour. It all happens in 1 second, all 4 of my phases. I use phase 2, which is energy for canter. And energy is not seen. I'm not doing this. It's just the flow of the energy, the very same as you need to do walk yourself or run yourself. It is a different level of energy happening in your body, but let it flow out. And then third, you can use a body cue that the horse can feel. And then fourth, you touch him with your leg or your reins or your stick. But try to refine it. And I think that you're going to be surprised. And the other thing I encourage you to do is go search a little bit into the lead dominant passive structure of the herd, and learn to become the lead. You know, leads never give up. When something goes wrong, they just bring another idea. Leads are the ones in the herd. The lead mare makes all the decisions. She has the best ideas, and she provides safety, security, love, and peace for the rest of the herd. So if you can become that for your horse, every horse is going to follow you, and it's going to be great.
Wow. Ben, your turn. Last message before we... This is so hard to end this session.
So my final thing is something that I've been thinking on, I've been working on for a while. A little bit like kind of what you were saying at the end there, Ingela, and a bit abstract to our conversation this evening as well. But I think there are 3 levels of being a person that works with horses if you teach horses new things, and they're levels that we all go through, not levels that makes it sound like grading, just points that we reach. Level 1 is trying. We try things. So like, I'm going to try and put my horse on the lorry. It might work, it might not. Let's try. That's stage 1. We've all been there, we've done that. I'll try and see if you'll go in the water jump at the cross country course. Stage 2, now this is where loads of people get to and they get stuck. They get stuck here because it works, but it's not what we want, and it's training. You can train a horse to do something. You can train a horse so that you push the button on, off switch. You've trained the horse to make it do this, to make it do that. And it's fine, but it's limiting. You'll never reach, you'll feel dissatisfied because what you're lacking is the harmony for what you're looking for. And then the final stage that you'll come to, if you really look for it, is to be a translator. Don't think of yourself as a trainer. You're not trying to force a horse into anything. You're not trying to con an animal into doing something with bribery, with food, or with force from appliances. You want to translate whatever's going on. Think about what you want the horse to be doing, and then do everything you can to translate that to the horse, to their brain, using your body, using your energy, using anything that you can. This idea of being a translator, but to be a translation, it has to be a conversation, and that needs to be a two-way conversation. So don't just give information to the horse. Make sure you listen as well. And make sure you remember that every single time you do something, whether that be put your heels against its sides, a touch on the rein, the voice cue, a whip, that is a question. Make sure you give time for them to answer and listen to you.
Wow. I mean, I am blown away. And honestly, if you look at the comments that are coming in, I think everybody else has gotten so much out of this conversation. I have 2 things, and I think I'm going to blow their minds as well in certain ways, in a good way, because I think there's a lot to take in. The first thing is that we were telling a lot of our followers to take a selfie when they've come into the social thing. So this is a historic moment for me, because Cavago is a dream come true, right?
Yes.
So I'm taking a selfie with you guys. This is a historic moment right here. Are you ready?
Okay, wait.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And what I want you to do is take your phones out and take a selfie with you and me. All right, here we go.
Here we go.
Selfie time. All right. Got it? Okay, awesome.
I think so, but you guys need to smile.
At the same time. That's just crazy. Now here's the thing. Here's the thing. As Cavago, I have an idea, and I want to commit to this, because a lot of people I saw on their comments said, a joint clinic with Ben, Ingela, and Yolanda. You know what? We'll make it happen on Cavago. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Let's do it.
Us 4. We will plan, because I see 3 of you. I don't count myself, right? We will plan.
Can I just make a shout that if you're going to do it this time of year, we go to Yolanda? Because I think it's chilly area.
You guys are more than welcome in Singapore. Come on over. We'll do a joint clinic with all 3 of you. We'll host it on Cavago and we'll tell the world about it. What do you think?
That's good. Super.
Fabulous
awesome.
idea.
With that, lots of love, guys. This was mind-blowing.
Wait,
you,
one
guys.
second. Once, quick. There are loads of questions on here.
Yeah.
We didn't get to answer them all. I'm going to throw up a ask me anything on my Instagram. And if people want to fire things on there, I'll do my best. And if they're for these guys, I'll try and fire them their way so you can get answers.
Awesome.
I'll do the same on mine.
All right. Yeah,
Thank you,
yeah.
Taz.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you, Yolanda. Thank you, Ben. You guys are great.
Thank you. See you next
It's
time.
amazing.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you.